Hi, and welcome to SOS Stories of Survivors. I'm your host, Serina Dansker, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to my dear friend, Jaime Hayes. Jamie's story is one of persistence and resilience, and really about the power of self advocacy. Jamie's going to share her journey with us, and not only the challenges that she had of living with a rare illness, but also what it means to trust yourself and fight for your health, and to remind others that they are not alone. This conversation is about hope, resilience, and the strength it takes to stand up for yourself. So join me in welcoming Jamie. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Serena. It's good to be with you always.
It's so nice to see you, and I'm so glad that we're able to talk about your journey. And before we begin, I would just love you just to talk about you, your background, where you grew up, what your life is like or was like before.
Sure. I'm a Navy brat. My dad was a fighter pilot in the Navy, which is pretty cool, pretty badass. Are we allowed to say that on?
Yes. Yes, you can.
So we moved around a lot. And then I early on found a love for music and singing. So my degree is in musical theater. That's what I went to school for. When I graduated college, I moved to Manhattan to pursue that. During that time, though, I learned floral design randomly because family friends of ours had 3 flower shops, and so I would help them on all my school breaks, summer breaks, and that kind of stuff. So that was sort of like my survival job while I was living and working and trying to audition and do all that stuff in the city. And I did that whole life kind of both for a while. I met my now ex-husband in the city, and we started our life together, had a little boy, and then moved up closer to Connecticut, where I met you,
Yes.
to be closer to his family. But my career really just veered more towards the floral design. So I've spent 25 years on the design side in flowers, and in the last few years, I sort of transitioned over to floral wholesale sales and buying. So
That's
that's
amazing.
yeah. But I was and we I my is my now ex-husband, so we divorced a long time ago. So it's just sort of been me and my son, single mom in it for many, many years. And he just graduated high school, as you know, and got him off to
I
college.
know.
So
Empty nesting. Welcome to the club.
I know. I don't know where the time goes.
uh, well, you have had such an incredible journey, and I would love for you to take us back to when you first began noticing that something wasn't right with your health.
Yeah, I mean, it was years ago. So my symptoms started creeping up, and it would be like one would like start, and then another one would pop in, and another one would layer and layer, and it just got worse. But I mean, it was years. I mean, probably back around 2018. It was definitely before COVID when things started ramping up, when I started to feel yuck.
What
So,
what were some of the symptoms that you were
sure.
living with daily?
Um, so many, but I think initially it started with with joint pain. So all over joint pain, intense fatigue, muscle weakness. Those were the main ones that started. And then, I mean, then it progressed to so many things like dry eye, dry mouth. Um, what else? Like heart palpitations, heartburn.
Oh my gosh.
Then it progressed through like I wasn't sleeping. This disease causes, I was up all night running to the restroom to pee.
Oh,
So I'd get like 45-minute chunks of sleep, and then I'd have to run. It
well,
caused, and like very high blood pressure all of a sudden. So there was just a myriad of things.
wow. And because you worked in the floral industry and you needed your dexterity with your hands, how did those joint pains and I mean, you stand all
Yeah,
day.
I
How
stand
did
up.
that affect it?
It was rough. It would get to the the bone and or the joint and muscle pain and fatigue progressed to like bone pain as well. So standing all day was rough. But during that whole process, it was kind of like, what is this? It took so long to figure out what it
So yeah, so let's talk about that. So of course, you feel like crap, and do you go to the doctor? Maybe you put it off a little bit. When
yeah,
you
I mean,
tell me that journey.
you kind of go symptom by symptom, I guess, but a lot of these things look a lot like rheumatological disorders, I like lupus or at one point they were doing a working diagnosis of Sjogren's disease because I started with that really, the dry eye, dry mouth, which, those diseases are hard to diagnose. So you start with symptoms. I mean, I think a lot of those diseases, it takes 5 years to diagnose because there's not usually one specific test that you can take that says, okay, yes, you've got this, you've got this. It's sometimes a lot of process of elimination and all that. But what I find, I mean, in our healthcare system, it's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
it is, it takes months and months to get seen from specialists. But I was lucky in the sense that I had good health insurance with my
Thank God.
work, but there are a lot of people that don't. And
Yeah.
that live in, I mean, we're lucky where we lived. We had access to the best hospitals in and around New York City. But there are a lot of people that live in rural areas. Hospitals are closing all over the country. They don't have great health insurance or insurance that allows them to refer themselves to specialists. I had that, and it still took years to figure out what was wrong.
So when you first went to the doctors, what did they tell you, or not? Tell you, or
if they're not looking in the right place, which we can talk about what I finally ended up being diagnosed with, but and I understand it's a shot in the dark for them sometimes too with rare diseases. I understand. I'm not, I don't want to blame the medical field for
no
like that, but it becomes, there are aspects of having a non-specific, not having a true diagnosis yet that doctors sometimes, they'll put on you that it's all in your head, or you know what I mean? So there was a lot of time spent, wondering, okay, am I crazy? Like, am I making this up? Is this just, I'm turning 50 this year. Is this just menopause? Like, what is this?
Right. Because you don't know. It hits everybody differently.
Right. But there would be one symptom that would end up saying, the doctor would say, okay, well, that indicates you need to go see a rheumatologist, or that indicates you need to go see a nephrologist, a kidney doctor, because my kidneys started acting weird. And it was a process of getting towards the answers by, waiting months, to get seen, and the next specialist to the next specialist to the next specialist. But I started doing my own research, and I started, really digging into my labs and trying the best I could to advocate for myself, because, I'm a firm believer in, you've got to listen to your gut in anything, right? Anything. But I knew that this wasn't right. And I, at a certain point, you almost start to feel gaslit by some doctors.
Yeah.
They're sick of seeing you. And if they can't help you, and that's the way our healthcare system works. Your general doctor, okay, well, you go see this. They just pass you off to the next, to the next, So, and then you're going through tests and scans, and it's costing thousands of dollars towards your.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Crap the whole time. So, but you can't give up. It's that hope that we'll figure this out, So
thank God you had that state of mind, and you had hope, and you also wanted to be healthy for your son.
Right.
And your diagnosis, and I know I'm going to butcher the name, but I'm going to go for it here. Okay. Well, this is not actually your diagnosis. Hyperparathyroidism is rare, but yours is even more rare. You have normal
calcemic. Yeah, it ended up being, it's called normocalcemic hyperparathyroidism, which I think is like 16 syllables, and that's ridiculous. But hyperparathyroidism is, I mean, it's not incredibly rare. I think like 1 in 1,000 people per year will be diagnosed with it. And usually it's pretty cut and dry with that diagnosis, because but my case, the normal calcemic version of this is rare. It's not well known in the medical literature. A lot of endocrinologists don't even know about it or recognize it. I don't think it was even introduced to the medical literature until maybe 15, 20 years ago. So a lot of these,
Crazy.
yeah. So it was quite the journey to figure out what this finally was. But what hyperparathyroidism is, primary hyperparathyroidism means, so it really doesn't have anything to do with your thyroid, which is confusing for people, but we have these parathyroid glands that live behind your thyroid. 4 of them, 2 here and 2 here. They live right behind it. And what their sole job is to regulate the calcium in your body, which sounds kind of benign, right? You know, you think calcium, whatever, everyone takes calcium pills, drinks some milk. But it causes, one of the other main symptoms is it causes osteoporosis. It rips your bones of the calcium. So, but calcium within your body too is too much or too little is not good. We live in a really tight range of where our calcium level should be in our bloodstream. It's like a 2-point range. And so those glands, like if for some reason you don't have enough calcium in your system, those glands then turn on and signal your bones to release calcium into your bloodstream to try to even it out. And inversely, the other way too. They're supposed to work like a seesaw, you know? So if for some reason there are reasons why you can have high calcium in your body that don't have to do with this disease, and those glands then shut down completely so that they're not signaling the bones to release more. So they are supposed to be sort of inversely behaving. When you have primary hyperparathyroidism, that means that there's an issue with one or more of the glands they are either there's a tumor attached to them, and 99% of the time they're benign tumors. They call them adenomas. Or in some cases, all 4 of the glands are like hypercellular, where they are getting enlarged for some reason, and they're constantly pumping out that hormone, that parathyroid hormone, which signals your bones to release calcium. So it strips your bones. It causes osteoporosis, and then all of that calcium gets dumped into your bloodstream, causes kidney stones. It causes damage to your organs, can cause heart issues if it's unchecked, and then all of those crappy symptoms. So back in the day, they would call it like, it's kind of funny. They would say it's the disease called bones, stones, and groans, because your bones are being like destroyed. Stones, people a lot of times get the kidney stones because there's all that excess calcium that your kidneys are trying to filter out. Right. And groans because it just makes you feel like crap.
Oh my God. Bones. I like that. It's much easier to say bones, stones, and groans.
Bones, stones, and groans. I think that's the old way they talked about it. But the only way to cure it, and you can have hyperparathyroidism secondary. So it's such a complicated, you can have high parathyroid in your system like that, causing all those same symptoms, but it's caused by something else. It can be caused by kidney failure. Interestingly, it can be caused by vitamin D deficiency. So, wow. So, those are the things that they look for to treat medically and not surgically. If it's primary hyperparathyroidism, that means there's something wrong with the glands, and the only cure is to have surgery and have them cut out. Most of the time, people are diagnosed with this when you go in for general labs and your calcium is really high. So if your calcium is high and your parathyroid hormone is very high, that indicates to them that there's an issue with these glands. They'll probably do another couple labs. And if it's the same, if both are running high, then because, if your parathyroid is high, your calcium should be low, that whole inverse thing. So most of the time this is diagnosed that way, and they would immediately refer you to an endocrine surgeon, and, you go in and have it taken care of. In my case, the normal calcemic, my calcium never got high. So it's like 5% of people with this disease live in that. And
this is like a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
It's
Yep. So it
Wow.
wasn't until like year 5 that I started complaining of that constantly getting up in the night to run to the restroom,
Right.
not sleeping. I'm just progressively becoming a zombie within my, I told my closest friend I felt like I was living in a black hole that whole time.
Yeah.
It was just the fatigue and the pain that is tiring in itself, living in chronic pain. But then I was not sleeping either. So it was rough. But it wasn't until I got referred to a nephrologist. He was the first one to test my parathyroid level, even though my calcium wasn't high.
Huh.
And he was the one that found that my parathyroid was high. But even he said, well, I don't know what they're going to do about that. I don't know if an endocrinologist would want to see you because your calcium's not high. So it's
Wow.
not known, so that's when I started in the digging. I ended up on a Reddit thread of all places. And someone mentioned,
Really?
yeah, because I was like, why would I have high parathyroid hormone, but my calcium be normal? And someone on there suggested to join a support group for hyperparathyroidism on Facebook. I did the best thing I could have done. Those
Wow.
people, so if I want people to know, if you're stuck in a weird situation like this, there are resources out there. You just have to start digging. There's probably support groups for every kind of disease out there, right? And you're going to find people that are going through the same thing, or that are just did, and that are very knowledgeable and can give you information. There was a lot of messaging back and forth, people asking questions, like people will slap their labs up there. I'm sorry if you can hear the cats fighting. So that's where I started digging and digging and digging, and learned that most doctors, even ones that are supposed to be experts in this field, don't know about this subset of this disease.
And
And
that
then,
would keep your calcium low. Is the subset, is that
yeah, when
why?
you're calciumic, because most doctors aren't going to even consider that's not that lab that for parathyroid, that hormone is not a lab that is really ever tested unless your calcium is high, and mine wasn't. So
Interesting.
in my case, they believe that my kidneys were working extra hard and filtering all of that excess calcium into my urine. So
Wow. And that's why you had to run to the bathroom all night long.
yeah, yep. So I ended up self-referring to a surgeon, and that's how because I made an appointment with an endocrinologist. Took, I think, the first appointment was like 6 months from that point. So
Wow. So you're like waiting and you're trying to
yeah,
figure this out. And then to get in with the doctors, you have to
yeah,
wait even longer.
that's
And you're
a
suffering this whole time.
yeah, but what do? You just got to keep going. I'm a single mom. I
Did,
have to work, and just keep going.
were
But
there any medications that they could prescribe to help you with some of the
no,
symptoms that nothing
no. I mean,
worked?
I was put down. I spent like 2 years even of that time with a rheumatologist, them thinking that this was like a rheumatological disorder. I was put on drugs that I didn't need. I was put on immunosuppressants that I didn't need. Nothing helped, of course. But and that's just that's the other really frustrating thing, for just to even on average, I think, to see an endocrinologist, your first appointment, when you make just to get your first appointment in, it takes between, like, on average 7 and 12 months in this country to get seen.
Wow.
So I was like, screw that.
Exactly.
if,
Exactly.
if I learned that if you have primary hyperparathyroidism, mean there's something wrong with the glands, and I realized that I'm probably in that normal calcemic version of it. It's just, then the only cure is surgery. Then I learned through that base group, that you can self-refer to some of these very specialized surgeons that only do that kind of work, that only do thyroid surgery or parathyroid surgeries. I sent them my labs, and they took me on, and I flew out of state. And
Wow.
and I understand that I was lucky and enough to be able to do that. And there are a lot of people that don't have that option, which is rough. And but I want people to know that you don't have to play the system the way they are
Yeah,
telling.
you can write your own rules, man. There's no law that says you have
Yeah,
to go from Dr. A to B to C. You can go straight from A to C,
right.
right?
Push. I mean, push. And even in the end, I flew down, had a surgery. I had two tumors on this side that they removed, and the scar is very small. It's just like
Yeah.
people that have had their
If you
thyroid.
didn't point that out, I wouldn't have even known it was
Yeah.
there.
Yep. And I was in and out and ate an In-N-Out burger or whatever we had in the hospital room later that night, so, and I immediately started to feel better. But even my surgeon said, it's a shame that so many doctors out there don't even know about this.
So let's talk about this. Right. So you send your results or your test or your or whatever medical forms or
Yep.
records that you have to this doctor, and he agreed, or the nurses said, he'll see you. So what was that process like?
Yeah. So interestingly in Tampa General Hospital, and there's like a parathyroid center down there in Tampa. They're both sort of the go-to. People come from all over the world to have surgeries with these guys because they will take
Wow.
on cases like this. It's a screening process. You can just email, self-refer. The nursing team will get back to you and request either you send your labs or they will do it for you. And I was like, sure. So I told them who my GP was and who the other doctors I was seeing, gave them, said, go ahead, send my labs to them. Because normal calcemic hyperparathyroidism isn't super cut and dry. They had me do a couple things, like vitamin D's tied into this whole thing. So they wanted me to supplement with vitamin D to see if that would,
Change the
do
numbers.
anything. So there
Yeah.
was another, few months of trying a couple things, but it didn't help, and they'd put my lab orders in and I would just go to Quest. It was amazing that they do that for you remotely. Which if you're able to self-refer to a surgeon like that I think that's kind of how they're doing it nowadays, which was awesome. And this disease is diagnosed solely on your lab. Scans don't really, they're not used. The parathyroid glands, when they're healthy, are the size of a grain of rice. So they don't, so even if they're enlarged a little bit, like if there's a small adenoma on them, they don't really show up in scans that well. So they don't really use that as. But he then called me. We had a conversation and he said, this is the toughest kind of case of this disease to diagnose because there's no guarantee. He's like, there's no guarantee, but he said, I've done this long enough that I bet you got some tumors in there. So
Wow. How did that make you feel? Like,
I tried. I stepped outside. The phone call came like while I was at work. So I stepped outside into my car and, nicest guy. He's an incredible surgeon, but just feeling like, this might be like the light at the end of the tunnel, because it was a long slog, and it just sitting there feeling like, okay, he's gonna take a chance on me, and we've exhausted. He said, he's like, we've exhausted all the other avenues of what this could be. He's like, I'm pretty sure he got those in there, but because my case wasn't so cut and dry, it was a risk. I knew if he goes in there and he doesn't find anything, he's going to sew me back up, and I'm going to go home and start all over again, so I was really, but I think
had hope.
you need to do your research too about who you're trusting to do something like this with.
Right.
And that's where those message boards and those support groups come in really handy, because, people have loads of information about who they've seen. But yeah, so I flew down from Connecticut to Tampa. And one of my best girlfriends flew with me, and she actually had her thyroid removed several years prior, so she kind of knew what that area of surgery recovery would be like. So she was my surgery buddy for that trip. And went in the morning, and that whole process of getting ready for the surgery. And when I woke up in the recovery room, they called him in, and he pops in, and I'm like groggy or whatever, and the first thing I'm thinking of is, was there anything in there? And he peeks in and he goes, two of them. Yeah, two of them. And I was like, oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
gosh.
So
Never been so happy to have a disease.
right, I said that to you. I said I've never been so happy to be told I need to get like cut open. And I, within almost immediately, the bone and joint pain started to ease. I'm talking within 24 hours.
Really?
Yep. Within a week, the fatigue was lifting. Oh, brain fog is another big thing with that. I guess all that excess calcium flowing through your system. I don't know. That's one of the things. I mean, the surgeon even made fun. They tell you you're supposed to load up on calcium supplements after this, because I had two good ones that were dormant. And so they need a little time to wake up, so they tell you to bring all this stuff ahead of, and I brought the wrong pills. They were in my purse. I was like, no, I brought them. And he just looks at my girlfriend, Melinda, and is like, these parathyroid patients, their brains are not working up to this point. So
I love that.
concentrate better. And then the heartburn went away, and my blood pressure lowered. Oh, intense anxiety for some reason also goes along with this disease. So all of that just slowly started to lift, and it's like 180 degrees. I feel like a completely different person.
Wow. So how long was the recovery from the surgery? I mean, it seems like the surgery recovery was actually better than the disease itself.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it was, like I said, as an outpatient. I flew home the next day. Day. So you can kind of go back to normal right away. You're tired from surgery and traveling and all of that stuff. But I developed like a little bit of a seroma underneath there. It was kind of a big lump, but that took a couple months. But it really wasn't. I've had way worse surgeries, so it was really easy.
Did your colleagues at work notice a difference right away when you came back, or how
Yeah,
did you feel? Like
pretty
this
much.
thing,
Yeah, I even had people that I hadn't, like my folks lived across the country. So even just having conversations with people after would say, you sound so much different. You sound like the light's back, like So I'm so grateful and so thankful for the folks that I was able to talk to within that support group, that message board, to get me from, but it's incredible. I mean, I did end up, this is funny. Like I had done that self-referring to the surgeon. So I had that all scheduled.
right?
In that meantime, I was still waiting for my appointment with the endocrinologist.
Oh my God.
Months. So then that appointment popped up like, about a month before I was to go have surgery. I was like, I'm still going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
She told me to drink more milk. So,
All of that time.
yeah. So that's again where you have to really, 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 really listen to yourself and trust yourself.
What do you wish more people knew, like including healthcare providers, or understood about a rare disease like yours? If you had a magic wand and you could change the way they do things, what would you like to see?
Well, I wish there was a way. I mean, I wish there was universal healthcare for everyone to be first. I wish it wasn't so hard for people that don't have, good health insurance the way I did. But I understand that doctors are busy, and I understand if there was a way to help these doctors also. I don't know. I wish there was a way that the wait times weren't so long, but
Yeah.
I mean, I had some good doctors, but there were a handful of them that were very dismissive and very much just like, that's hard though, because if they can't find anything, if they're not looking in the right spot, they're looking for what they're thinking they're looking for, and they're not finding anything, then they can be a little dismissive, but I think I've always also too had a little, I don't know if it's growing up in a military family like that, that air of authority.
Mhm.
I think it took me a while to to get to the point where it's like, no, just because they're saying that doesn't mean that that's it, and that I should
That's
give up
right.
and I should just take their word for it. I respect their professions, and I understand
Of
what
course.
the so sorry.
She's very vocal this
She
morning.
is. Um, so it's a balance, but I think it's always constantly checking in with yourself and saying, well, wait, I'm still really struggling here, and
Yeah.
I got to do something, and I've got to, I just got to keep digging. It's kind of like that. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit until I figure out what this is. So
Right, right. So you have to advocate for yourself. You have to
you do
believe in in yourself and know your body, right?
know your body, listen to your body. Also, I'm big on centering yourself and listening to your heart too. So
Mm.
we live in we're constantly bombarded with information, and we're always on our phones, and we're always being pulled in a million different directions. And so if you're dealing with something like this that makes life extra hard with all the other responsibilities you have,
Right.
it can it can be overwhelming. So I think there were a lot of moments, quiet moments, where I would sit there and really talk to myself and say, okay, like, are you making this all up in your head? And I, if you listen to your heart, you listen to your gut,
Yeah.
that's where the truth lies. And so you just got to keep
Keep
fighting
put
for yourself.
one step at a time, right? Put one foot in and advocate. Yeah, I just see more and more, they're not that it's the doctor's fault. They they have their own professions or their own lane that they focus
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
if you will. And that lane, sometimes they don't deviate into other lanes, or they're not as comfortable in those other lanes. So they do as much as they
Right.
can in their lane. And
And they pass you off. Yeah.
yeah,
Pass you off, and then you're waiting, get seen, and then that's not the answer. And then they pass you off to a different one. So it's a long, it can be a long slog with a weirdly, a hard to diagnose
and
disease.
if
But
insurance doesn't cover it, you're stuck.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I really, really feel for people. I was just listening to a podcast the other day about how many rural hospitals are closing, and it's making it so hard for people. It was already a long drive or whatever, and now, so yeah. But one thing too is, and I know this about me, I have a hard time asking for help. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's like that single mom thing where it's like, I can do it myself. I've done it myself for all these years, so I'll do
Yes.
it myself. But I learned to really lean on my friends like you. My family were wonderful,
Yeah.
supportive, there to listen, or just take my mind off of it and laugh. Yeah. So, um, let your friends help you too. So,
It's no, there's no shame in reaching out and asking for help.
yeah,
I've learned that
yeah,
all the time. There's something to be said for just getting a little escape from those
sure.
challenges that you're going through, right?
Yeah.
How did your life change after the treatment? What was like the first thing you noticed?
Just with that light coming back on. I've used
Yeah.
that analogy a bunch. It was like prior to surgery, I felt like I was living in this like dark black hole. It was just, I was so tired all the time, and just every day was just a slog to get up. I was constantly, I
Mm.
wasn't sleeping. And I wasn't able to be there for my son as much as I wish I could have been, just like that low energy. And so that's what I noticed the most, is when I
Wow.
started to feel better, it was like, oh, the lights are coming on. My son and I can laugh and go do things. I have energy to go, to go and be and do. So um, it was, and just not being in pain anymore. When you're sick, you have the flu, and you think it's never going to end. And then that first day that you feel better, it's like, oh, it makes you appreciate your
Yes.
wellness.
It,
So,
and you're healthy because you realize without your health, you can have all the money in the world. Look at Steve Jobs,
you know,
right?
yeah.
And without your health, it means nothing. So how has this experience shaped just the way you see yourself, Jamie, today,
I think I realize I'm stronger than I thought I was.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we all have our stuff, right? We've all been through hard things. So when you're in it, I think, and you come out the other side, and I was really proud of myself for sticking it out and digging and trying to figure out what the heck this was. And yay, I was right. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Um, but proud of myself for sticking through. And I think it also helped me appreciate life a little more, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Being able
beautiful.
to get up and go on a hike or just use my body in those ways where I'm not in pain anymore really makes me appreciate feeling
That
better. So
your light just shines. I mean, your light shined even while you were ill, but I knew you suffered a lot. And I have to tell you that your resilience, your patience through it all, and your hope has just been, it's inspiring, truly, really inspiring. And if you could speak directly to someone listening right now who may be feeling dismissed, invisible, maybe even hopeless on their own health journey, what
yeah.
would you want them to hear?
Well, number one, don't give up. Don't give up. Use the resources. Some people might not be social media folks or whatever. So if you're able to have a family member show you how to, get on and join some of these groups, that's one thing. I can't tell you how helpful it's a hyperparathyroidism support group on Facebook. So I'm sure Facebook
Mhm.
is a group for all kinds of things. Um,
Yeah,
Listen to yourself, don't give up, fight, skirt the system any way you can. If you're able to, like I was, just skip the middleman. In a sense, I was skipping the endocrinologist, to just straight to the surgeon because I was armed with enough knowledge. You gotta educate yourself too. I mean,
yeah,
I spent hours, which I know doctors don't like you to do. They don't like you to
I
diagnose
know.
on Google, but it was I was that there were no other options for me.
Right.
Um, Your IV. Sorry. Um, so, and to talk about it. Talk
Yes.
about it. Get the word out. You know, you never know when somebody, in fact, I'm pretty private with my stuff like this. And I was after the surgery, I was just sort of urged in my gut to share that story. So I kind of wrote it out and posted it on my page. I just was this little voice in my head was nudging me to do it, and I wasn't quite sure why. And now I know why, because several hours after the post, one of my dear friends called and said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." And she was recently diagnosed with this disease and hers was easier to find. They found it because she was in full on osteoporosis and her calcium was also really, really high. But she
Wow.
was afraid to have the surgery. It's scary.
Gosh.
It's scary. But it wasn't until reading what I wrote about how easy the surgery was and how much better I felt after that she called and wanted to know more about it. And that next day, she then made her appointment and scheduled her surgery. And she had her surgery and she's doing great. So even, in that sense, if you can share your story with someone, it might help somebody not be so scared to take that step. Or so
That's
we're
so
all
beautiful.
connected, right?
Oh,
We've just got to take care of
it
each other.
goes full circle. It really does because you were helped through a group, and then by you posting on your page, someone else is able to help and
Yeah,
be helped.
right.
It's beautiful, and that's the way the world should really work. That we're all helping each other reach our full potential.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change it a little bit up for you today. I'm going to do what I call a lightning round and
Okay,
just ask you some fun, silly questions.
okay, here we go.
All right. So, what song or music is your go-to when you need a little pick me up or you're feeling
When they need a pick me up,
or
I
just like when you want to just feel
mean,
good?
anything by Queen, probably.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
love Queen.
yeah, anything by those guys. I just did 2 big long road trips across the country this summer because I moved from Connecticut all the way to the West Coast. But um, there was a Cars radio on Spotify that was awesome. So it was like all that old stuff like Cars and Tom Petty and Heart. So
Oh, I love all of them.
and
Those
Taylor
are
Swift,
great.
I'm a Swiftie. I don't. I'm a.
I, yeah. That's okay. No shame in that, babe. No shame in that.
I love
You
it.
know, shout it out.
Hmm.
Would you go, what do you say, tea or coffee? What's your go-to?
Coffee.
You're a
Coffee.
coffee girl.
Mhm.
Iced or hot?
Normally hot with a little bit
Yeah.
of cinnamon and half an hour.
Ooh, that sounds so good.
Yep.
And I guess, is there a book or that you would recommend to people or a book that you love, a favorite author maybe?
Oh gosh, a favorite book, right? Oh gosh, I was such a big reader in my youth. Um, that is so hard. A
I
favorite
know.
book. Well, I loved. I mean, you know this. What is it called? The Fabulous Life of Billy Fingers. Remember?
Yes, 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 that was a great book.
That one. You'll
And
finish
that's a life-changing book, for me
it.
too.
Yeah. That one's a good one. That one's,
That's a great one. Billy Fingers. Yes, I love that book.
yep.
Um, and I guess, what is your favorite flower, my florist friend?
Oh, that's so hard because I'm so lucky to work in that world. I mean, what's that quote? Or Earth laughs in flowers. I love that. That's
Mm.
the fact that the planet produces such beauty is beyond. But I love cymbidium orchids. That's one of my
Oh,
favorites.
that's beautiful.
And ranunculus. I love ranunculus. You love peonies. I know what your favorite.
I do. Those are my favorite. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I just love talking to you. I could talk to you all day about some of the challenges and tribulations that we go through in life. But I usually like to ask my guests if they have any resources or websites. I know you had said the Facebook page is there.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. And then if you are finding yourself, if you find yourself with these weird same symptoms and you get a high parathyroid hormone level in your labs, I think you want to start digging there. That support group on Facebook, it's a private group. You got to just join it. But then I would start digging around with some of those expert surgeons, which they have a list of their recommended surgeons on that group. But I can't say enough about Dr. Lopez and Dr. Polites is the one that did my surgery down at Tampa General Hospital.
oh,
So,
Thank you so much, Jamie, for sharing your story. And I like to end each of my episodes with a poem from Scotty. And the one I chose today is I Got Nobody, because sometimes you do feel alone. And I think we can all relate to his poem. You can only dislike things that can be fixed. Looking at yourself in the mirror, transfixed. My mind is affixed. I can't see what I used to see in myself. All I see is connect the dots, making an elf. My face is scarred. My body is a lard. This is why I constantly look for attention. I crave to be complimented on my complexion. My mom was right. My acne looks like I was in a fight. My body looks like a bomb site. And my personality makes people take flight. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like a mental amputee, like I'm drowning in a never ending sea, falling deeper down, losing the light that was once within me. Crazy, right?
Oh, Scotty. I mean,
I
his
know.
for a 14, 15, 16-year-old is just incredible. So
Oh, I just, it's so hard because I always I know this was his journey, but I always wonder what if, and you do, and I'm grateful though that I can share his words and his wisdom with all of our listeners and all of
there's
my friends.
real wisdom in Scotty, you know,
Mm.
he was beyond his years in so many ways. So
Oh, and thank you, Jamie, for everything you do. And to our listeners out there, please, if you're feeling not yourself and you're just at a loss in whatever way, it could be physical health, mental health, reach out. There's no shame in that. Talk to your friends, go do some research.
yeah,
Um,
research is empowering because it gives you something to do too. Like it helps you focus, and
yeah.
it's like a puzzle. So you're trying, you know, it's almost a distraction and a focus at the same time, I guess. So yeah.
And you can get and it gives you hope too when you see other people have gone through it and have come out the other side. It
Sure.
kind of gives you hope that there's a chance that this too will pass.
Yeah.
And we all need that hope. We all need to know that as we take these steps along our journey that we're leading somewhere better,
Yeah.
somewhere where we're destined to be. And I'd like to ask our listeners, if you have a story and you'd like to share it on my show, please reach out to me. My website is serinadansker.com. You can reach me on sosradio.live, on SOS Stories of Survivors. Look me up on social media. And remember to join in next week to SOS Stories of Survivors, where survival sparks the soul. And thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Love you.
I love you too. Mwah.